don't know that.
Is it Kyle? What? Caden? Caden, we're ready?
He did a thumbs up.
Thank you, Caden. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:03. Natalie, can you please take the roll?
Board Member Van Landing is absent. Board Member Kluth.
Here, present.
Board Member Bobla Monica. Present. Vice President Clerk Barrow.
Present.
And President Cole.
Present. All
All
right.
present.
Thank you. Any public comments that we've received online, Natalie? Okay, great. So I'm going to number 2, public comments and communication regarding closed session and agenda items. 2.1, public comments from the audience to the board for items on closed session if they're in person. And I don't see any people in person. Makes me laugh every time. Members of the audience may address the board regarding closed session agenda items. Comments from visitors shall not exceed 3 minutes unless waived by a majority of all members of the board. Seeing that there are no members, no audience members, we will close this closed session, or close this part, sorry, and move to closed session. we good to go, Caden? Yeah, this is good. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:01. There's nothing to report out from closed session. And Natalie, can you do the roll?
Board Member Van Landingham is not here. Board Member Cluth.
Present.
Board Member Bove LaMonica.
Present.
Vice President Clerk Barrow.
Present.
And President Cole.
Present.
All present.
Please rise for the flag salute. We're going to move on to number 6, the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve.
Thank you, Maggie.
I second.
Thank you, Carol. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes, thank you, Kathy. Agenda's approved, ladies. Moving on to announcements, our favorite time. Welcome. I know Kelsey, but I don't know everybody else's name, so come on up.
Hi everyone, I'm Noah, Valley Student Council ASB President.
Noah.
We're excited to be here tonight and update you on what has been happening at Valley. In the past month, our 8th graders have written Spanish pen pal letters to our friends in Loreto, Mexico, and tackled one of the most challenging grammar lessons in Spanish 1, indirect object pronouns. They also created digital ofrendas for Dia de los Muertos last week. We're studying the new vocabulary for Chapter 7, which focuses on seasons.
Oh, he's coming. Caden is coming.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Mia, Valley Student Council member. In STEAM 6, students are working on puzzle cubes. They used 27 small plastic blocks to make 6 separate parts. This is a new project this year from PLTW. 7th grade STEM students are finishing up the digital photography unit. They have done an alphabet nature, finding letters that occur naturally around campus portrait. Spot the difference between cropped images and meme. 8th grade students are completing student-led engineering projects. Groups of 2 get to become the teachers in order to develop and grade sketches, competition/builds, and write-ups.
Hi everyone, I am Aria Kavlikar, Valley Student Council member. Art 6 is finishing up the trimester by using a color scheme to create a painting inspired by Wayne Tybad's desserts. We will also be painting and completing their ceramic masks by the end of next week. Art 7 is finishing up abstract acrylic painting that focuses on color and emotion. They will be painting their ceramic rattles at the end of the week to finish up the trimester. Art 8 has begun to work on 2.9-year perspective project in which they will include a familiar building from their community.
Hi everyone, I'm Harper and I'm part of Student Council's Dance Committee. Students are preparing for formal debate. Using the middle school public debate program, 12 teams will debate 6 different assertions ranging from schools should ban animal dissection to the U.S., should significantly increase space exploration. Yearbook is finishing up photography practice projects for trimester 1. They have now begun designing templates for the yearbook and will be adding to the photo library as more school events are completed.
Hi everyone, I am Kelsey, Valley Student Council member. Our leadership students have explored what it means to be a great leader by developing a growth mindset and understanding what mistakes are proof their brains are growing. They've learned about the power of positive self-talk, how strong habits help leaders stay trustworthy, focused, and effective, and what it takes to be a positive, contributing team member. Students have also examined how trust is built and maintained through consistent actions and clear communication, recognizing that communication involves not just words, but tone, body language, and active listening. They've practiced empathy to clarity and collaboration in their interactions. Currently, their focus is on responsibility and accountability, understanding that responsibility begins with our choices
and true leaders build trust by owning their mistakes and making them right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Noah, Mia, Ari, Harper, and Kelsey. Thanks for coming tonight. Moving on to public comments. Public comments from the audience to the board in person. I see that many of you might be leaving us, so you might not have any more public comments. But members of the audience, goodbye, Kelsey. Good night, guys. Members of the audience that are leaving us may address the board on any topic, regardless of whether it's listed on the agenda. However, the board may not discuss the issues raised that are not listed on the agenda. Topics not on the agenda that are brought to the board's attention may be investigated by the administration and a report made to the board, either publicly or privately at a future meeting. Comments from visitors shall not exceed 3 minutes per individual speaker unless waived by a majority of all members of the board. Moving on to board member reports. Carol? Thank you. Kathy?
I have nothing.
Maggie? I think Rachel did go to the equity and inclusion. I don't know if there was one.
That was Carol.
Carol. Okay, no problem.
I went to the seed committee meeting.
Great.
Which was great. And we are talking about, we are talking about a multicultural night at the school, which I think will be super fun. Working out some details on that. And there will be more to come, I think, in December for signups.
There is a really good one that happens at Adams Middle School, Ms. Bledsoe, if you're hearing me. They have it's a really mixed community. And
yeah. And this would be a district-wide event, not just by each campus, so one event.
Great, exciting.
I have a question. I know that I should know this, but what does SEED stand for, S-E-E-D? It used to be Equity and Inclusion.
Equity and Inclusion, and we changed it. Give me 1 second, I'll look it up.
Oh, it's okay.
I can't remember it off the top of my head.
You could tell me later.
Yes.
See, it wasn't an easy thing for me, so I was curious.
But it's a good acronym.
Yeah,
Planting good seeds.
The seeds of truth, the seeds of harmony, the seeds of peace. Plant those seeds.
Ms. Bledsoe will share when she comes up in just a minute.
It's okay, I'm sorry.
She was the subgroup who determined the name, so she'll look it up for us right quick.
And like on the agenda, we don't have it. It's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I looked. That's why.
We're gonna move on to Maggie's question. Go ahead, Maggie.
So the South Bay Community Coalition Against Hate, I finish up my term as chair this November. And just want to make sure that if other folks would like to roll onto that committee, I'm happy to have somebody else be a part of it. Opportunities for leadership across the South Bay. Think about it. Nominating committee right now, if you want to take a leadership position, is this month, but I'm also happy to, when we do January reconfigurations of committee positions, if somebody else would like to take that on.
How often do you meet?
If you're in leadership, monthly. If you're not on leadership, every other month, bi-monthly.
Great.
SEED stands for Strengthen, Engage, Empower, and Develop.
Strengthen.
It's on our website.
Engage. Empower.
Thank you. Great minds. Okay, moving on to board reports. Reports to the board and discussion. 10.1 Hermosa Valley School update. Ms. Bledsoe, welcome.
My favorite place to be.
We know it. Sure.
No, really. Good evening, board. Thank you so much for inviting me here to highlight the academic work that's happening at Valley. I think this is a really great, important topic, and as we've heard from our parents from multiple surveys, this is something that is a real focus for us here at Valley. So I'm excited to present some of the things that are happening in the classroom. Thank you. So tonight I'm going to be, is this the best picture? My goodness, I'm like science at work, of course.
And look at those, look at that information on the walls.
Right? Yeah. Yes. So tonight I'll be sharing how our teachers and students are engaging in this rigorous work and learning across all of our core subjects. And then I'll take questions. We're going to start with fifth grade. What I love when I'm in fifth grade is students are learning in a variety of spaces. So I think this is the coolest thing about learning, the evolution of learning. But from when I was in credentialing program of like put them in rows until November and don't smile, to like now this important conversation is happening on the floor. It's happening outside. It's happening in the cave. And Hermosa has a really great opportunity to offer this learning in multiple spaces within and outside of the classroom. What you're seeing here is fifth graders exploring how values, you can switch, Miss, thank you, how values shape people in ELA. So what I've posed here is the essential question and the focusing arc from our newly adopted Wit and Wisdom curriculum that our fifth graders are working on. They're reading their core text and Thunder Rolling, and they're exploring how values shape people. They're also building fluency in long division in math and studying the earth and the sun relationships with in science, which you'll remember was our newer adopted curriculum with FOSS. So really great opportunity to explore in more depth concepts that they'll be learning as they continue their work in Hermosa and beyond. And also really hits that informational text component too that we're always seeking them to experience. We're also preparing for the walk through the American Revolution in social studies, and you'll remember an also newer adoption was our impact textbook, which I'll talk a little bit more about when I get to the middle school sections. Thank you. All right, ELA update. So this is going to tackle more through our middle school content. But one of the things, sorry, can you head back just 1 second? One of the things that I wanted to highlight in this image is the artwork that students are engaging with on a daily basis. So it's not just the reading of the text and then moving on and summarizing and asking multiple choice questions, but my 6-year-old is saying things like, what do you notice and wonder about this? I'm like, wow, this is so fantastic that we're actually engaging in and exploring the purpose of art ahead or as a hook to the text that's supplementing it. So you can move on. Thank you. At this time, we're really engaging with what Wit and Wisdom is called enduring themes. So it's really built around that rich text, built around students' background knowledge. We talked a lot in the adoption process, Kathy, that you are a part of too, that what students know on the outside of the curriculum, being able to bring that into conversations that are happening in the classroom and making that relevant to the coursework that they're being exposed to. I think the beauty of what we're seeing now in ELA 2 is we're not focusing on finite or isolated concepts, but rather it's woven into the fabric of the content and curriculum. So not really focusing on like isolated vocabulary skills or grammar, but really that discussion surrounding storytelling and kind of what I've posted here is linking you back to the essential question. So that's the broader module question when you're looking at the content and curriculum. And then the focusing arc is the I guess you could say like substandards within each module. And then within each focusing arc are lessons. So each lesson is about 7 to 14, each focusing arc question covers about 7 to 14 lessons that students delve into, and at the end can answer the focusing arc question, and then at the end of all of the focusing arcs can talk more deeply about the module. So 7th grade, for instance, how does society both support and limit the development of identity? This is a very higher order thinking question if you're just going to pose it in isolation to students, but the focusing arcs really tailor them through or take them through that lesson study and then connect that discussion, that rich discussion, back to them being able to answer this in writing. And I think that's the other piece that we were talking about too, the development of high quality writing, referencing, if you can hit back one more slide, referencing things like, back to the 5th grade. One more. Yes, all of these charts that you see on the wall are for students to pull knowledge that we're not having to develop writing, in a vacuum, but we can use the resources that surround us, and our teachers in English are doing that. Go ahead and tag through to the 6th grade pictures, right? One more, there. So in 6th grade, 6th graders just finished comparing the work of Langston Hughes to their core novel, Bud Not Buddy. So a lot of the discussion is also looking at different literary works and then seeing how they compare to one another. Next slide. In 7th grade, they're using details and dialogue in their writing. So that's one of the things that if you enter into an English teacher's classroom, they're always saying, like, give me more details, give me more. And so by connecting that work that's happening around the classroom, they're working on the translation of the Canterbury Tales in 7th grade. Next slide. And then in 8th grade, they're analyzing the narrative arc from 3rd quarter of the crossover, and they're actually composing their own poetry. So students are developing their work by mimicking that of the literature they're being exposed to, and writing their own poems modeled after that text. Okay, this should look familiar to any of you who are on the impact adoption, but one of the greatest things that we have heard about the social studies content or the social studies curriculum that we have adopted is that it fits like a storyline. So a lot of times people that are critical of the learning of history is that it's just facts that we have to memorize. But the benefit of having impact is it's written really history through a story. So the connection to students is quite applicable. Next slide. This is kind of an overview of what each grade is doing, but let's take you through the pictures instead. Next slide. So in 6th grade, they are wrapping up their study of ancient Egypt. They're looking at a timeline through history, so creating maps, pinning maps. You can actually now pin a map and make a comment by saving the map to your Google. And so they're going back and saying, like, well, in what BC did this happen? But they're covering everything from pharaohs and gods to pyramids to hieroglyphics. And then I believe the next area that they're looking at is ancient Israelites. In 7th grade, they're finishing up medieval Europe and are preparing to dive into Islamic civilization. This is really like going back to the building of the understanding of culture, political ties, economic development, and then they're having really complex conversations about our world today and how it relates to the economic development of past cultures. So riveting conversation in our 7th grade classes. Thank you. Next slide. And then in 8th grade, we just completed our final project on the causes of the American Revolution. Also quite interesting, but exploring now the new nation. So including the Constitution, Bill of Rights, getting deep into the language. And I think going back to kind of the connection between poetry that we're having in English language arts through wit and wisdom, and then the very finite, specific language that's going on in the development of documents such as the Bill of Rights creates this really cool contrast, but also a timeline of what literary works looked like. So lots of great stuff. Thank you. All right, next slide. Again, I left this here so you can review, but I'm not a slide reader. Sorry. So can we go on to the next slide and we'll talk about 5th grade. So in 5th grade, again, talking about the movement of the earth, looking at how the sun impacts that, impacts waterways and airways, exploring how land masses have moved. 5th graders doing science like this is really exciting to watch. So I'll have to get the times for you so you can swing by and actually see this science being done. But more importantly, it's the conversations that are happening, like, how do you work this syringe? Oh wait, the cap's still on. And I think that's like just the tangible or tactile elements that engage all of our learners, not just kind of a sit and get, but it's a real investigating and having those courageous conversations. Next slide. In 6th grade, we are talking about heat transfer. So if you made it out to the bowl, what you saw is our students building solar ovens and collecting data on solar ovens. So they were looking to see who created the most amazing solar cooker. On Monday, we talked about their data, and what was great is I'm sitting in there and we're looking at a chart of data with a bunch of numbers, and Mr. Underwood just says, explain to me what you see. And what I loved about that is the students are not being given the answers. They're looking for trends. They're looking at, well, why was this 26 seconds and this was, what happened? I think that, and a group member would raise their hand and say, it looks like we maybe wrote down the wrong measurement. So it was lots of really great ownership and illustrative of the fact that we can make mistakes in science as long as we learn from them and can make hypotheses of how to do them better. But really cool investigation. Okay, 7th and 8th grade, we're talking a little bit more about physical science. So did we skip 7th? I'm sorry, one more back. Yeah. In 7th grade, we're talking about kinetic energy and energy transfer. So how do we correlate that to like our sports and how do we get something to move? Miss Shannon is going to then take us through solubility. So we're going to talk about the very real world applications of how, increased salinity, what that does to our planet, and then really kind of diving into that real world phenomena and how our experimentation can mimic that of what's happening in the broader world. 8th grade. In 8th grade, we're talking about Newton's laws, and students had to actually create an infographic that represented linking force and motion to their sports and hobbies. What I love that Ms. Shin does is she connects to what students are actually doing. So they're going through what is the movement of this, what does this look like, and how do the forces acting on the ball represent you scoring a goal? So students who are maybe not necessarily super interested in Newton's laws, they can still provide relevant examples from their time in club soccer. Okay, let's talk about math. So in math, next slide, we are, one more. Thank you. We're moving beyond fractions and decimals, and what we're seeing in our 6th grade math is that students are really starting to think algebraically. So they're pushing their understanding of what is an equation and how to develop an equation or how to organize their thoughts or their math skills for that foundation for future growth in math. But it's less about here's the question, here's the answer, and more about what do we think about this? How do we rationalize this? And how does it connect to concepts before, or how will it connect to the concepts that we're working on after? 7th grade, speaking of after, here the students were working with rational numbers. And I love this wall. Every time I walk in it, the images change, but it's math is everywhere. I think I can replay in my head asking my teacher, well, when am I going to use this? But I think what's great about our teachers is they're very quick to say, here's where we're going to use it, and then the students are coming up with their own examples as well. So they're solving equations, they're really strengthening their critical thinking, and they're working on more complex problems now in 7th grade. Next slide. And then in 8th grade, students are applying geometry. They're looking at polygons and angles and figuring out what that interrelationship will look like. Mr. Hazard is bringing in some outside examples of geometry at work. And they're solving systems of equations. So you can see kind of like the growth of moving past decimals and fractions to the understanding of simple equations to more complex equations, and now it's just systems of equations. So all of these things kind of tearing in and feeding into one another, but upping and increasing that level of rigor for that high school support. And then the only thing I wanted to finish with is where are we going next? And so I would say, I know that you're going to be receiving a presentation surrounding our data that has really helped us in Hermosa Valley figure out a path forward, figure out what kind of things do we need to look at to support the learning of all of our students. So what we did is we took that data and we did a department deep dive into it. Then we took that department discussion and had a whole Valley team discussion of what do you notice and wonder, not to link it back to Wit and Wisdom or to Mr. Underwood standing in front of a chart, but I think it's really important for people to sit with information and data and then get it all out and then make concrete next steps. Speaking of concrete next steps, I'd like to thank the board for adopting the strategic plan. I think this is going to really enable us to have a roadmap of what are the finite things we need to accomplish in each of the years, and then at the site level, what exactly do we need to do to accomplish the things that are Valley specific. So we plan, Dr. Wilds actually presented to the leadership team I was going to say champagne, but thank you. Cascading information and what this looks like. The image was champagne, so no judgment there. And so I look forward to kind of diving into that with department teams and having the discussion of how we at Valley can figure out how to get these things done to benefit student learning and academics. So I would say in my many images that we took, what I'm seeing is rigor is high, teachers have high expectations, and students are meeting teacher demands. And then the last thing I wanted to say is we are excited that we have rolled out the intervention during advisory classes, because those students that are those cusp kids that are almost there, we're having an opportunity during the school day to really provide that intervention, and they don't have options, right? So like, hey, we're going to math intervention. We're really going to get you exactly what we need instead of providing it just before and after school. So we're grateful for that time as well. Questions from the board?
I'm just going
We can start with Carol.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I feel like I just had the greatest tour ever of all of those classrooms. So thank you, because the visuals are huge into understanding what's happening. It was a great presentation. A couple things jumped out at me. One was just all the hands-on in science. I think that creating a love for science starts with that kind of hands-on stuff. So thank you for that, and I'm super happy to see the teachers are doing that. The other thing that jumped out at me was the timeline through history. I think that it's just another way to have a visual, and when all of us are thinking about it, it's just a really great way, I think, for these kids to get it. And so I'm glad to see that on the walls, and they can visualize it as they're taking exams and all those things.
Yeah, I've actually heard students too say things like, that wasn't so long ago. And I think that when we think of the creation of the Bill of Rights, we're like, but it
absolutely
wasn't so long ago.
Compared to the Romans or...
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Kathy?
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment this whole PowerPoint, whatever you want to call it. But I'm excited for it, and it's in response to the rigor requests, right?
Great.
And in every single subject matter, I mean, of course, language arts is my thing, and so the wit and wisdom is very, very exciting. But it kind of folds into each other, so they can use what they've learned in one subject and roll it into the next subject. So, yeah, all the millions of people who are watching this online right now. Just be excited about this school and what is being accomplished. So I'm really happy about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Maggie? Yes, I would concur with Kathy for sure. This is an amazing, great job in the presentation, especially like visually, like getting us to it. I was just wondering, how do you plan? I think rigor, seeing it was one of the things that the kids wanted, and it's one of the things the families wanted also. How do we plan to maybe share this?
So I would first start by saying it's being shared by kids. I think that, Hermosa teachers all Hermosa teachers, but they do a really good job of presenting information in a way that's attainable for students. But I think the kick-up of 3 new adopted curriculums really in the past 3 years. We have a new teacher at a grade level that's learning FOSS, Wit and Wisdom, and Eureka for the first time in his life. And so we're just providing him oxygen like every Thursday. But I think what you feel when you walk in the classrooms is high expectations. And I think that we just came off of conferences, which was really nice to have the students and parents face-to-face saying, here's the work that your student is completing. But I think as a broader share, we're also doing some curriculum highlights through the Wave Watch, and students are coming home with a great deal of coursework. Personally, I mean, I have a daughter who's in a 4th grade class in Hermosa who's coming home saying things like, did you know that, vasoconstriction is the literal heart, but Clara Barton, we had a conversation about her figurative heart, and I'm like Googling Clara Barton, right?
Right.
So I think the conversations are happening from what I understand around the dinner table, and students are using words like I notice and wonder, or in Mr. Bodine's class, our new social studies teacher, I think you saw the highlight from our socials, super engaged in that discussion of what does it mean to come together to develop a document, and students in those classes are wildly engaged in the things that he's saying. I also had a conversation I saw Julia Cox's reading intervention class this morning, and the students were so engaged in that's our phonics program, the exponential growth phonics program, or the sister to Just Words. It is Just Words, the sister to Foundations. And actually had a student that raised her hand and said something like, when she was called on to do work on the board, finally, I'm thinking, wow, we're like so engaging kids that they're competitive of like, how do I annotate text on a board in front of my peers? So I think they're coming home. She's already said that she's seen growth in students from the first benchmark to the second. So I think we're going to continue to map out data, and we're sharing that back From conferences, our commitment this year is the circle back. I think what we've always done is connected with parents, but now we've mapped out 4 to 6 weeks of we will communicate back to you and we'll update you, because really it's that revisit cycle that's going to help us with continuous improvement.
My suggestion would be this deck right here would be really great to send out to parents and say, hey, if you're curious about what 5th, 6th, and 7th, and 8th grade looks like, and you're not in every classroom, this is cool. Check this out, because I would be excited. I mean, we're educators, so we're like in the mix of it. But as a parent, you'd be like, wow, I mean,
you're doing a lot.
That's impressive.
You're doing a lot.
So, our job is to also promote the great things we're doing.
Sure.
So I want you to get a lot of good credit for the good things and the staff that they're doing there. That looks really rigorous. Awesome. So great
Thank
job.
you for that.
My other question would be intervention. Is it happening? Do they have to miss a class, or do they get taken out of class, or it's during
No.
what
So
time of
that's
the day
the
is
benefit
it?
is we built in advisory through our bell schedule committee, and advisory is 25 minutes 4 times a week, so not Wednesdays because that's our early out day. And during this time, students have an advisory teacher linked to their team color, their Valley Spirit Games team color. And so in there, it's an opportunity for students to organize themselves executive functioning wise. We do reminder binder checks. On Mondays, we do all of the surveys, which we pulled out of the general education to make teachers happy, right? So they can focus on the rigor and their content that they have to teach. So as much as we could pull out of their actual time with students, we're placing that into advisory. We were doing some SEL in that time as well, but it's really an opportunity for the students to take a beat during the day, organize their thoughts, and make sure that they are ready for what's happening next. Additionally, students that require intervention, we have now 4 periods of 25 minutes to pull them, and we have designated intervention teachers that are focusing on whatever their deficit is.
Okay.
So anything from reading to math, English, reading, and math. Our ELD is being supported through there, counseling. So lots of opportunities for students to engage that doesn't then impact the pull-out of their elective or the pull-out from PE that some students really need within their day, and then definitely doesn't touch the academic parts of their day.
Great. So just because you are a really good presenter and you're very enthusiastic, I'm just you've also been here for now, 4?
This is my fifth year. Yes.
So just looking back to where we are now, how do you, it's a feeling of, I guess, but we have data that supports it, but what's your sense of how things are
Yeah, I mean, when I started here, we were masked. We were having conversations about how to get students to interact with one another. We were saying things like, how do we market them trying out for soccer? Because we have 3 kids signed up. And now we're just super not there, right? We're like, our sports teams are filled. We're winning. Students are rocking Hermosa gear all over the town. Our enrollment is up. Students have moved from different towns if they didn't get in on a permit to live in Hermosa, to go to these schools. They've changed where they live. So I think that alone speaks to the great work that we're doing and the things that people are hearing about Hermosa schools in the community. But it's still the same amazing small town feel. I think the benefit that I feel working at Valley now versus then is I now know 85% of the kids' names, 85 to 90. It's hard when you're new to a place going student in the red shirt. But now I'm not going to say a name because I will say it and then I shouldn't. But I think the overall vibe on campus has been we've hired really good people in the last 5 years. We've placed people in positions that they're successful in. And students have a feeling of pride surrounding their academics, which also it's cyclical. So when you feel good about the place you go to school, you throw your trash away. When you feel good about the place you go to school, you try out for the sports teams, and then you practice for them, and you represent your school. Allison Montoya says something right when she is on the bus before we go on a field trip or before we represent ourselves at athletic events, and she's like, "You're amazing. Remember, don't embarrass yourself, don't embarrass your family, don't embarrass your school." But really, our students are not. They're killing it. They're working really hard. This particular group of 8th graders, really fantastic leaders, and I've given them credit for that. So the students that are representing us here, speaking about their elective classes, eloquent speakers, but good humans, so many good humans. So I think we've made a lot of gains. I think teachers are still fostering positive relationships with students, and I think that's like one of the reasons we're able to be so connected and successful.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you. I'm going to hang for your presentation.
Sorry, moving on to 10.2, statewide assessment results.
Yeah, the most exciting part of the evening. No pictures in this one. So I am, thank you for your patience. I'm going to step in as Sylvia tonight, and we'll go ahead and get started. So just a quick reminder for the hundreds and thousands of people who are watching this online, the Smarter Balance Assessment System, otherwise known as CASP. So we are part of the state of California is part of the Smarter Balance Consortium. This is a summative criterion referenced assessment. So it is assessing the criteria or the standards of that grade. What's important to note is that within the CASP, the Smarter Balance Assessment, it will throw discrete items at students that are above grade level. So it will test items. If you're taking a 5th grade Smarter Balance, there will be 6th and 7th grade discrete items that kids can engage with depending on, and it is adaptive, right? So how students answer the first 10 to 15 questions is critically important to kind of the pathway the assessment takes them in terms of what they call the CAT, the computerized adaptive portion of the test, kind of a multiple choice area. The second part of the test is a performance task. And when you look at the performance tasks, students are being asked to do really hard analyses of typically multiple text and write about it. Which is why we love so much the work that they're doing with Wisdom, because it is mimicking that level of writing and having to defend their thinking. Next slide. The Smarter Balance Assessment is built on a blueprint, and so there are a number of items and what they call stimuli. So it'll say how many literary versus informational versus how many items are assessed around writing organization, writing style, those kinds of things. Just a reminder, during COVID, when it was kind of embargoed for a year, then it came back, the Smarter Balance Assessment was cut in half. So it was about 50%. It has not gone back to the original format. So it's still only 50% of the CAT part of the test, and then they have a performance task. So we're still not getting large numbers of discrete items in any given category that we had pre-COVID. Next slide. So we had some overall findings during the 24-25 school year. Overall academic performance, student achievement in both ELA and math remains what we call flat. We didn't see any large growth areas, and we didn't see any large areas of necessarily decline longitudinally over time. And so that's something that we really tried to address in the strategic plan. There are some subgroup insights. Females are still outperforming males in ELA by about 6% overall. But they underperform them in math by about 7% overall, which is an interesting kind of phenomenon. Students with disabilities and English language learners continue to score significantly below their peers. However, we will talk about English language learners. That subset is grown smaller over time. And the number of students that we have designated as English language learners has declined. And our Hispanic students are the lowest performing racial subgroup. In 2025, the percentage of English learners attaining a level 4 on the LPAC. Now, the LPAC is an assessment, part of the Smarter Balance, but is part of the assessment that assesses language acquisition and where they are. And a level 4 typically gets you into what's called redesignated status. Students attaining a 4 is reached its highest level to date. So we're really proud of the work our teachers have been doing in supporting students' language development. But also this idea of the curricular implications. What we know from research is exposing kids to greater levels of higher, rigorous, challenging curriculum will not only impact all students, but has actually the highest gains for students who are students with disabilities, English language learners, and below, who are performing below. And so prioritizing, making sure that that strong tier 1 evidence-based instruction is occurring in all classrooms, making sure we're implementing to fidelity. Because oftentimes in school districts, if you don't have tier 1, you try to fix a tier 1 problem with tier 2 interventions. And we want to make sure that Tier 1 is doing its job, which is 85 to 90% of making sure students are achieving. Next slide. So overall, in spring of 2025, Hermosa Beach had set in English language arts, and this is grades 3 through 8 cumulatively. We'll break it out by grade in just a moment. 79, just over 79% of students met or exceeded. In mathematics, we had just over 74% met or exceeded standards. Longitudinally, you can see from pre-COVID, again, pre-COVID would have been the full weight of the CASP testing. 2021 is when that baseline appeared, but you can see overall in ELA, we've stayed fairly stagnant. A little bit of a bump last year, but we'd like to see it get a little bit higher, get it higher. By grade level distribution, we have some discrepancies, and which is what we're needing to unpack a little bit further, but one of the things that I want to kind of highlight as a standout is 4th grade. So one of the things for the school leaders and myself, when we look at data, not only do you look at data where you need to make adjustments, but you have to look at what's really working. So what is occurring in 4th grade that is resulting in over 60% of the students not only meeting but exceeding standards? What is occurring? I had a conversation with Ms. Yang today, and one of the things that her 3rd and 4th grade do is have a strong commitment to what we call the IABs, which are the practice. They're not the full CASP test, but they are, the state provides interim assessments, right, where you can assess small chunks and portions of it. Both 3rd and 4th grade, particularly 4th grade, spend a good amount of time allowing students to engage in how the test works, right? And so their students are able to engage, they're able to score them together and have conversations about where their errors were. That was one of the things that she's kind of noticed. In subgroups, you can see male, female again. But if you look, important to note, our English language learners, that was 11 students. So at about 11 students in grades 3 through 11. Barely counts as a subgroup. The state makes 10 the minimum to count as a subgroup. Next slide. Sorry, go back one more. And then ELA demographics. Again, the reason our African American students are not represented on this graph because they did not hit the 10 minimum needed by the state to be reported.
Maggie, do you have a question?
Yeah.
I did have a question, but I can save it to the end if you're in a flow.
No, it's okay. No.
Going back to our ELL.
Yeah. Go back one more. Yes.
Offhand,
Yeah.
do you have the breakdown of like where they are in their learner language journey of like,
Yeah.
are we?
I can pull that.
I'm just curious if like, is that going to drop to 5? Like we had one year where like 50% reclassified.
Right, and that we had huge reclassification numbers last year. So typically what we see, most of our English language learners are coming in as TK and K. Now the state changed the criteria. We no longer LPAC test in TK anymore. They wanted LPAC testing starts in K. That being said, many of our students are reclassifying before they hit 3rd grade CASP. So when you get to the 3rd through 8th grade level, you're seeing large numbers of LTEL, long-term English language learners. And the research is really grim in terms of if students are not reclassifying in the 3 to 5 year window, they are less likely to reclassify. And so we have to really give them some more targeted, designated instruction. So again, one of the things that historically we have not done is have an ELD section in our students' schedule. It can be challenging, right? If you're a student who wants to be in the band, you don't want to spend your elective in ELD. Yep. So creating this advisement period where their designated ELD instruction is done then, and you're still not missing your elective is really pivotal.
I can save this for later, so cut me off if you want me to put a pin in it.
No, please do.
But there is really good research coming out about the ability to reclassify students by 8th grade, so they are able to be fully accessible through A through G curriculum once they get to high school. And it'd be interesting to see if we wanted to dive further into like historically where our students have gone, and if we can make that a goal of the district.
I mean, luckily there's only 11 from last year. We know exactly who those 11 are. We can see where they are and where their LPAC scores are. Like I said, if you're, and again, it changes, like what we I don't want to say the medicine, but what the intervention we give you, whether you're scoring an LPAC 3 and you've got maybe C's, is different than a student who's maybe an LPAC 1 or 2. We really kind of have to look at that level of intervention. And one of the things, we won't do it in this presentation, but in the LPAC, there's a lot of really good information that comes out, particularly if you're the person giving the LPAC, because it is a one-on-one assessment versus a student. You learn a lot by listening, especially in the oral language component, to kind of see where kids are in terms of their academic language.
Can I just ask a reminder question, or just remind us? So in K5, there is not there's not what do we call it? The period that you have.
ELD. Yeah, ELD in elementary. ELD is taught in small group by the general education teacher. That's why teachers have the CLAD on their credential. When you get into middle school, especially the secondary level, that gets a little murky. And so what the law says is that students who are still classified as an English language learner have to be in a designated period. However, they do have the ability, families, to opt out. And in my experience in previous districts, and particularly in high schools, kids don't want to lose that elective, right? And so a lot of times families will opt them out. And so this is a really kind of creative way to make sure that they get the designated instruction, but also get their elective at the same time.
So intervention in K5 is just happening in the classroom?
In the classroom, yep. Yes.
Do you want us to save questions?
No, please do.
Okay.
I'm going to do my best.
Can I dive in there?
I'm not Sylvia, but I'll do my best.
Okay. So I had a couple questions on
Yeah.
a couple of the previous slides.
Yeah.
One of them was on the 5th grade that was
Yeah.
showing a little more struggle in
Yep.
the standard not met.
Can you go back?
I'm curious.
Thank
I
you.
think you were just on it, actually.
Sorry, one more. Go forward. Here we
yeah.
go. Yep.
The question I had was around cohort data, and if we were to look at cohort data, if it would show something with, I don't know, 5th grade, is that something in 1st grade when
Yeah.
COVID, like what that says about
we
it?
We have deep cohort data. Both the 5th and the 6th grade did take a drop, though. So
Okay.
they were not this low in the
Okay.
year before.
All right, that was my
Right?
question.
Yeah.
If that was like a 5th grade thing or a cohort thing.
They were not so this particular 5th grade you're looking at, when I look at their 4th grade data, it's not as
Got it.
strong as this 4th grade, but it was not as weak as
Okay.
it is here.
All right.
And that's kind of some of the unpacking we're doing, right? How are we giving the assessment? Are we practicing for the assessment with the IABs? Are we helping children understand, the why of the test? Oftentimes, especially at secondary, they're taking it just because they're told to, but not really understanding that this assessment is making claims about their ability to be successful at higher levels, and particularly, even at the 11th grade CASP, is making a claim about your ability to access college level course, right?
Yep.
And that's not a connection that kids make automatically, or are we doing a more explicit enough job helping kids understand that?
Right. Yeah, and they're in a new school taking this test, but it's spring, so at that point, that factor should have sort of evened out. The other question I had was around the gender differences between ELA and math.
Yep.
And I think
We don't
it doesn't
see
matter.
that-
It was before. I'm just wondering if we see that changing from 3rd grade to 8th grade, because I know that was a 3rd to 8th stat.
We see almost a zero difference at 3rd and 4th grade.
Interesting.
And then we see 5th grade and 8th grade start to pull away. So again,
Okay.
something that we need to unpack. Sometimes it can
Pull
be
away, sorry, both genders start to pull away in terms of math. So ELA
You
and math
said
are almost the same 3rd and 4th.
almost an
and then
identical
it-
in 3rd and 4th grade, and
Interesting.
then you start to see.
I was sort of thinking it might be the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I had.
We did a deep dive. Yeah. Can move forward we'll get to math. Okay, longitudinally in math. And you can see we've just returned almost exactly to pre-COVID, but we have some work to do. One of the things to note to kind of move math is moving the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math curriculum. And so that's in our strategic plan to go after a new curriculum. And I think one of the things is we look at Eureka Math in K5, the level of rigor, the amount of writing that has to happen in Eureka Math to defend answers and come up with multiple solutions. You don't necessarily see as much in big ideas in the middle school math, so we'd like to go after that. There's also a new California math framework that we'll be going after and studying. Next slide. But we see a similar kind of distribution pattern in math as we do in ELA. Sorry, go back one more. One of the things for me, and Ms. Bledsoe and I have talked a tremendous amount about, if you look at that 5th and 6th grade, look at all the yellow. And we always say we're just like leaving money on the table, right? These are kids that are nearly meeting the standard. They could be as far away as 1 question to like 3 or 4 questions, that they're very close.
This might be the incorrect way to look at it, but considering our students with special needs and our English language learner population is like altogether maybe 11%, 12%, something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
And I can understand those categories of students having different rates of achievement based off of different learning plans in place.
Sure.
So, I mean, would it be reasonable to be like, we should be at 87%
overall? I think it's
meet and exceed, like giving ourselves like wiggle room for those 12% of students who have different learning journeys and IEPs.
Possibly, but not everyone with an IEP has academic challenges, right? It could be, social emotional. You could have executive functioning, but your skills. So I would, I look at the surrounding districts.
Yep.
Their percentages are of students with, English language learners. In some cases, are both districts that sandwich us, or even higher than ours. There's no reason. That's kind of why we wrote into the plan to increase percentage. I think we wrote 3% year over year. Because I don't think there's any reason why we can't jump 9 to 10%. Yeah. Because even if you're just looking at these percentages right here, now I would argue 4th grade's going to have a hard time getting overall. When you're scoring 60% of kids already exceeding, they have a little bit of wiggle room. They get about 13% of kids to play with, but you've got almost a third of our 6th graders right there that are nearly meeting standards. It should not take much to kind of push them over the threshold. And subgroups in math. Next slide. Demographics. And next slide. And science. And so science is called the CAST. So it's a little different. Important to note about the CASP is it only tests in 5th and 8th. However, it's not only testing on 5th grade standards and 8th grade standards. So in the 5th grade CAST test, it is the cumulative work and learning of K-5. So it is really the work of the entire elementary. Even though it's only tested in 5th, they have 3rd grade discrete items, 4th grade discrete items, down even to 2nd grade. What we do know is that I've actually run whole groups of teachers through taking the practice CAST, and 9 out of 10 times, this looks almost identical to a science ACT, meaning you don't have to memorize science content, you have to just manipulate phenomena. And there are discrete items where kids can change, if I add this, what's happening to graphs, and it's really more of a critical thinking and how strong of a reader are you, right? And so those two, what we know about high school kids, very strong readers do very well in the ACT, particularly in the science section, because you're just reading science content, very similar to the CAST. And strong readers do well on this science test. In 8th grade, it's the cumulative content of 6, 7, and 8 that they're tested on. Next slide. But science, again, is looking relatively flat. And our distribution. And then our LPAC. And so if you can see, we have over 60% of students who tested on the LPAC this year who scored a 4. Those 60% of students will most likely, unless something has gone awry, will be reclassifying, and so they will no longer be classified as English language learners. So that'll drop our numbers even lower. Next slide. Longitudinally, this is really an area to highlight. This is our strongest LPAC results to date. Again, please note there's only 15 kids versus 29 from several years ago. So what does the data tell us that we need to do? we need to make sure that we are implementing curriculum, high levels of curriculum, evidence-based curriculum with fidelity. It is a learning curve. This year is we call it an internalization year because teachers are learning and reading, but we're already seeing kids engaged in higher level work. Professional development, making sure our teachers have high quality, ongoing professional development. It's not just a one and done. So wit and wisdom, geodes, dibbles, the writing. We'll actually be coming back to do wit and wisdom again this January, where our teachers will be doing a deeper dive and unpacking of really what writing looks like. Again, we know writing is the output of reading, and so we want to make sure that their writing, what kids are doing, is commensurate with their ability to read. As well as we made sure every single new teacher and staff member got trained in Eureka, and making sure they were trained in foundations, and making sure that just because in FOSS, and just making sure that just because the curriculum adoption year was before them, that we need to make sure that they're trained. They also have collaboration days, and so 2 days dedicated for grade levels, not only to plan, but we did this with 5th grade. I'm looking at Jessica, I was like, that was 5th grade, right? 5th grade, where we're analyzing student work, right? What are we seeing students do, and where do we need to take them next? And then we have to make sure that all of our grade levels are using these formative assessments. And so that was actually what today's staff meeting was for grades 3 through 8, about making sure we know how to access these IABs, how are we using them, how are we working with kids to make sure that they are understanding the results and being able to engage with them. Questions?
I did have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
But, one was, thank you for this, and thank you to Sylvia for putting
Thank
this
you,
together.
Sylvia. Yeah, I didn't do this.
It's a great, great overview, and great to see where the trends are going and the next steps. Regarding the professional development, I'm just curious to those, because, as a former teacher, it's like, obviously, you just want to have access to look in other people's classrooms as much as possible, or access of sample good work, or access to what a room environment would look like for these programs.
And Jessica can speak to that a little bit.
Do those programs have that online component, so people, since that is clearly possible?
So so one of the things also in some of the training that we've doing, like for foundations, for example, within they have an entire, it's called the Fun Hub. Not only are teachers able to see room setups, but they're actually able to watch lessons of teachers teaching the lessons. Same thing in wit and wisdom. And so it's, right now we're internalizing, but giving them these collaboration times where they can sit as a grade level and say, okay, well, what does module 2, lesson 3 really look like, and they can actually watch the lessons.
Which I love. And I think one of the things I kind of guinea pigged along with Dr. Wilds, I was like, can you lead this one component of the delving into student work piece? But we started with 5th grade for wit and wisdom, and I think the benefit, the biggest benefit that I saw was in a room, I sat with them the majority of the day, so I think engaging in that work with them and saying, hey, what do we do next with this is important. But I think seeing each other's student work and the output, Dr. Wilds led us through a discussion of what can students do, because I think sometimes as teachers we're like, this kid is missing this point, or -1 for this thing. But really we charted out what can your even lowest level learner who's accessing at this level be able to do. And it was really like cultivate a main idea, which is huge for a student who's struggling maybe with like a 1st grade or kindergarten reading level, was able to cultivate a main idea. So I think the biggest benefit of that was charting out what were we going to do. The work involved too, being able to back map to what that final assessment is going to look like together. Even if somebody's on lesson 16 and somebody's on lesson 18, the conversation was like, hey, don't skip the blah blah blah. So that really enriched the professional development. But then we back mapped what's the plan for the assessment, where kids have to go, and what do we need to be sure to do to get them there.
You also walked them through each other's classrooms. They got to see different focus walls. Yeah. So, to highlight taking the 5th grade, and we noticed by the end of the day, 2 of the focus walls had already changed and moved in a room, right? Because you go in one room and they may have been like up left, but we go into another room and it's like the wall, right? And so them being able to get to see, well, why is X teacher why did you make that choice, right? Versus why did you make this choice? And so then we got to see some people make some immediate adjustments in their classroom.
And that's what it's
And I
about.
think-
it's like it's a craft. It's not a perfect. We're not perfect.
It is.
in this.
And I think the benefit too, we have teachers like Mr. Padilla who's saying, if you ever have a sub that has 15 minutes of nothing to do, can he come in so I can watch someone do a math lesson? Can he come in so I can?
Amazing.
So I just feel like that growth mindset being mimicked by teachers. Additionally, we're going to Valley's going to tag back into day in the life or instructional rounds at the end of the school year. So just getting into, as teachers, we kind of live in our own silo, unfortunately, and there's so many great things that people are doing. But we have 7th grade, or we have English tomorrow for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So we're making connections with schools that are doing wit and wisdom across in our area, but we're also going to analyze student work together at the middle school level. So it'll be interesting to share back with you what that looked like, because level of rigor and the conversations in 8th grade from what we're seeing that's happening in 5th grade, it'll be an exciting pool of data.
Yeah, even resharing your deck with the staff, it's like they're going to get ideas from seeing pictures in other people's rooms.
Oh, absolutely.
And they don't have time to go
and
there.
that's always in their staff newsletter weekly too.
Great.
So just 2 more things. I'm just going to jump right into the superintendent's
Yeah, go
report.
ahead,
So
10.3.
that's please, everybody come join us this Monday, November 17th, 6 p.m., Hermosa Valley, Measure HV community input session. So we really want to kind of show you some of the kind of the thinking and the work, and then we really want people helping us. Are we on the right track? Are we prioritizing the right things? We want to make sure we get everybody's input. So again, this Monday, November 17th, 6 p.m. As of 2 o'clock, we only have 7 RSVPs. So we really want more people. So drag your neighbors. It'll be a good time. And then
Where do you want people to RSVP?
Valley MPR, Valley Multipurpose Room.
At the RSVP, where
Go
do they
right
go?
on our website. It's a pop-up. As soon as you go to hbcsd.org, it pops up in your face. You can click on that, and and if you don't have time to RSVP, that's okay. Just come.
And has the staff seen the idea?
They're going to be on December. They're going to come into a staff meeting. Yes. So they're also invited, but they'll have their own specific staff meeting tailored to them. And then finally, in the next coming weeks, we will have a ton of information out for families. TK through 8 Invention Convention is coming to Hermosa. It is my favorite thing in this world. Kids identify real-world problems and get to create their own inventions, trial and error, and then they pitch their inventions kind of like it'll be probably late January, early February, but it'll be everybody from, and you will see TKers inventing new crayon machines. We had I'm looking at Natalie because she was part of the group that we paid, but we had kids who go in onto nationals. We had, I think he was a kindergartner who invented flavored IV for his mother who was getting cancer treatment. I mean, it is such a cool thing. We had I think it was a 6th grader invent a double-handled umbrella that actually then got picked up by Shark Tank.
That's right.
So just really, really cool. It's just a cool opportunity for kids to invent. So that's coming soon. That's it for me.
Okay, moving on to number 11, consent. Can I get a review of the consent agenda, and then I'll take a vote.
I move to approve consent.
Thank you, Maggie. Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Carol. All in favor? Aye. Moving on to action items, business. Ms. Montalvo is not here tonight.
Yeah,
but
I'm going to be everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go, Susan.
All right. As part of our commitment to ensure representative membership on the Measure HV Citizens Oversight Committee, the district is bringing forward for approval tonight the appointment of 4 new members of the committee: Peter Sprague, Thomas Dunbabin, Sasha Hex, and Michael Mancuso. Staff recommend you approve these appointments.
Anyone have any questions? We really appreciate these people coming out and spending their time doing this. We can't have the bond in compliance without everyone's involvement, and so we know that's an extra lift as family people, so we appreciate it. Any questions? All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Kathy. Can I get a second? Thank you, Carol. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to 12.2, acceptance of notice of completion for Hermosa Valley School with the HVAC replacement.
Yes, so as a final step of the Hermosa Valley HVAC project this summer, the district is bringing forward tonight for approval the notice of completion. This allows us to start issuing funds for the payment. The project has been inspected by both district staff as well as RHA, our commissioning consultants, who have found the project to be complete. Staff recommend that this notice of completion be approved.
This is great news. And can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. 12.3, approval of technology order, Ms. Montablo / Ms. Dr. Wilds.
Yep, that's me. This item seeks the board's approval for the purchase of Apple iPads for teachers in grades K through 2 and special education. This supports the implementation of the M-Class DIBELS risk of reading difficulty screener and the Woodcock-Johnson assessment tool. Staff recommend approval and ratification of this contract.
Go ahead, Maggie.
I don't, and sorry for not checking with technology on this ahead of time. How many other Apple products do we have? What's the compatibility of doing Apple with other systems?
Sandra can answer this as well. But the Apple iPads are probably one of the most, we were actually just talking about it today, one of the most compatible products, particularly, and for this particular case, when you're doing the DIBELS one-on-one screener, there's a kind of a hard copy of a prompt in front of the student, and they're reading them off. If you, by using the iPad, it's just done through the browser, but then teachers are able to click quickly with their finger as opposed to try to drag with a trackpad, that kind of thing. But hi, Sandra.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us in Hermosa.
Thanks, Sandra.
You want to talk about Apple iPads?
Yes, so Apple iPads, I've worked with them at Redondo for 9 years, and they seem to be very compatible with a lot of the applications. They're very user-friendly, so it actually is the best application or device to use for the students.
And do we have, just, I know, I'm just going back on history pieces where we've looked at different pieces of technology. With the Apple, all of the other, will these be used solely for DIBELS? Will these be used for other apps in terms of observations?
So definitely for DIBELS. So we have one assigned for every teacher as well as RSP teachers so that they can do the implementation. The Woodcock-Johnson is another assessment as part of psychoeducational assessments we do for special education that requires the iPad to run on that application. Again, because teachers are doing kind of marking the discrete tasks. But part of this, we have not had any technology for our kindergartners as part of the curriculum adoption. Geodes, which are the readers, the decodables, also come, there's copies of 6 copies that teachers can use in a small group, but they're also available digitally. So we want to be able to make sure that we provide students access so that the teachers can have them practice reading some of those decodables as well.
So just to clarify, so we can't use Chromebooks to do this work that we already have?
Well, we don't have enough good in-working Chromebooks right now to give to the kindergartners. That's very challenging for them to go into a Chromebook and kind of type in their username and log in. iPads allow faster and easier login for them.
And we should, just double clicking, we should do this before we have like an overall view of like all the technology in the district? Well, because it's more urgent?
This is more urgent because we need to be able to access this and be able to administer the M-Class DIBELS this coming early February.
Okay, any other questions? All right, can I get a motion?
Moved to approve.
Thank you, Carol.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Kathy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Spit it out.
Moving on, personnel 12.4, ratification of the contract of employment for the Director of Technology.
Yeah, that's me. I may cry on this one. The Director of Technology plays a critical role in advancing the district's strategic goals by ensuring that technology systems are secure, reliable, and effectively support learning, teaching, learning, and operations. Approval of this contract allows the district to move forward with stable leadership, the superintendent to stop being the Director of Technology in this essential department. Staff recommend that you ratify this contract.
Any questions? We just want to welcome you. We're really happy that you're here and that you chose to come over to our sweet little spot here. We've got lots of work to do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So we appreciate you taking the job and appreciate where you're going to take us. So we're excited to work with you.
Thank you very much. Same here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yes, welcome, and so moved to approve it.
Yes, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Yay, done, official. 12.5, approval of the HBCSD professional experience criteria to teach UPK/transitional kindergarten.
Yes. So Education Code 48,000G requires credentialed teachers. If you're going to teach TK, you have to have a multi-subject, but then you have to also meet criteria in 3 different areas. You have to hold what's called an early childhood add-on. You have to hold a child development permit, which is like a preschool permit, or the third area is what they call equivalent experience of those 24 units that are the add-on. School boards have to actually take action to say what their equivalent experience is, right? It's left up to school districts. So the local agencies are responsible for determining what professional experience equivalence actually is and bringing to the board for the adoption. So HBCSD, we want to thank our partners, Christina Stephanie and they used to call it BITSA, the induction program, who did a deep dive of all of our surrounding districts. And HBCSD is proposing the following criteria to be what we call equivalent experience: 2 years teaching in TK, 2 years teaching in a kindergarten classroom, 2 years teaching as a lead teacher in a preschool program, or a combination of the above, meaning at least 2 years. Staff recommend that the proposed HBCSD criteria is adopted.
Right, Maggie, you have a question?
Yeah, my question pertains to knowledge of curriculum. And I think my one concern as a lead teacher coming from a preschool classroom is the on-ramp they might need to become familiar with the new state-mandated curriculum. So I can see having a combination if they've touched curriculum development previously, but I don't know if I don't know if it serves the district well just to have lead. There's all kinds of other great skills that come with being a lead teacher from preschool, but they wouldn't have the curriculum side of things. That's my only concern.
I would say it depends what preschool they've been teaching in, right? There are different, there are state preschools that are fully in accordance with the UPK. If they've been in licensed preschools, if they've been in just a non-licensed, I would agree with that. But if you've been in a licensed program, there are very strict criteria about the curriculum that's been implemented within the classroom. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to my experience at Manhattan Beach Preschool. It's different than at a Martyrs Preschool. It's very it is very outlined. It is if you're sending your kid to kindergarten.
But it's my point is that if this is going to be our board proposal, we could put certified preschool.
Yeah, we could say certified.
I'm just saying,
I would prefer that as well.
In a student's educator's.
Yeah, we can easily amend this item to include certified in front of that.
Yeah,
or licensed. Yeah.
I would prefer that as well, but that's.
I agree.
So can we say licensed instead of certified? Just licensed. Great.
Good catch, Maggie. Thank you. Excellent. All right. Do you need anything else from us on that, Susan?
No.
That's
just
because
a
my
vote.
son's TK teacher is amazing.
There we go. All right. Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Kathy.
Second.
Thank you, Maggie. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to board member roundtable. The only thing I was going to add was I know I'd read about the amazing success of ourselves in the Skechers Walk and all the families that participated and all the amount we raised more than we've ever raised before. Had more walkers than we've ever had before registered.
You won't know how much, Skechers Walk raised more. They don't typically tell us how much the district gets until March.
But in terms of quantity of walkers.
Walkers was incredible.
Yeah.
I think it was 800 or something more than last year.
It was
a lot.
significantly more. We had more walkers than we actually have students enrolled in this district.
That's been, I think it was 1.5 times. It was a lot because we've had more walkers than enrolled students for the last few years, but this was way beyond.
So just appreciations for the community for rallying and the families and the teachers and making it a fun competition. That's the only thing I have. Carol, you have something else?
Nope.
Kathy? Nope. Maggie? All right. Oh, Maggie does have something.
Thank you. Tonight's conversation on data just made me think that perhaps our SEED committee wants to talk about changing our district language from ELL to MLL, so multi-language learner instead of English language learner. I think with the amount of work we do around educating students on Spanish language. It's an inclusive term that doesn't denigrate a student's experience in having more than one language already coming into this district. They might, English might be their third language or their fourth language. So it's just a more inclusive term that doesn't put the acquisition on English acquisition. It's recognizing the student's language background. So something for SEED to consider.
The only thing to wonder about that is our role is to teach English. And so I'm not sure if it does matter with like what the state is asking us to do or what we have to show.
We could bring it, we'll bring it to the seat committee. It would be an internal terminology only because in the CDE world, they're pretty married to EL, but we'll absolutely bring it to our.
Something for them to consider.
Well, wishing everyone a happy holidays coming up, and we will, I'll take a motion to adjourn. If no one else has anything else.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you,
I
Maggie.
second.
Thank you, Carol. All in favor? Aye. Aye.